Hello everyone, I'm Sonic Senraku, and welcome to my advanced tech/combat tips and tricks series for Neo the Warden's review. Wait, did you see that? This is a tech I'm going to refer to for now, until our the community thinks of something better, as inertia manipulation. In this particular video, we're going to learn how to do what I just showed you, by discussing conservation of momentum in Neo's combat, and how you can use these concepts to bring some style to your combo crafting. Let's begin by talking a little bit about how combos are handled in Neo. Most of the glitz and glamour of a combo comes from executing a psyched finisher. For the sake of this video, we're going to focus on finishers that exert a directional force, whether it's a pillar of ice acting as an upwards launcher, a sword slash that sends enemies flying, or a boulder that slams directly into the ground. Crafting combos in Neo boils down to pairing these forces in sequence, and said sequences determines which finisher's force has priority over the other. So let's try to understand what I mean by taking a look at this example. In this combo, I'm gonna knock the enemy away with Fuchin, then use a launcher to send them directly upwards. So typically when you hit an enemy with a psych that causes the sent flying force like Fuchin, they'll be propelled quite a distance across the stage, as seen here. However, if the player knocks the enemy away with Fuchin, then immediately releases the piercing pillar psych while they're being knocked back, so as long as the piercing pillar attack hits, the momentum from Fuchin will be cut off prematurely, and the enemy will be launched directly into the air. There's no conservation of the momentum from the knockback, it just gets immediately cancelled in place of the upward force. This expected behavior behind the physics of Neo's attacks makes chaining combos together feel snappy and instant, providing the player the means to easily judge which direction the enemy will be, and the affordance to respond accordingly without a lot of room for error. However, what if I told you that depending on how you activate a combination of finishers, that you could essentially create a new interaction due to the directional forces of those finishers being averaged out by the game's engine? What if you timed those finishers in such a way that the force of one finisher didn't supersede the other, but rather attempted to conserve the momentum of both? Surprisingly enough, Neo's physics engine allows for these kind of interactions, but you gotta know when to time it in order to see it happen. So let's talk about that. From what I've managed to observe, it seems as though Neo determines the directional force a pin is going to exert on a target right as the finisher makes contact. This is why you can almost immediately override the force of one pin with that of another. It's because the game most likely determines which force exerted against an enemy should take priority based on the order in which they made contact. So for example, if I unleash a shockwave finisher into a piercing pillar into a pile driver, the attack that was last in the order of contact will have directional priority and cancel out the momentum of the other two attacks. In the case of this example, it was the shockwave attack that held directional priority because it was the attack that last had contact with the enemy. We know how far the target should be launched if these attacks were used individually, so the fact that their momentum gets cut short without much display of inertia should provide substantial evidence for this assertion. I'm making sure to specify that this priority is determined the moment the finishers make contact, because understanding this emphatically will help you with mastering how to mess with the momentum of your pin attacks to create new interactions. We know that once a force is exerted against a target, using another finisher will just immediately cancel out the momentum of the previous one. If you've been keeping up, this means that you can't, emphasis on can't, get a conservation of momentum/inertia interaction if the force of the finisher you've unleashed is already in the middle of influencing the target's directional path. So what's the right timing then? Is unleashing the pin combinations at exactly the same time the answer? Not necessarily. For one, pins of varying startups will lead to the attacks hitting at different times, so the game is just going to prioritize which one ends up hitting first. So then do you just improve your timing to make sure the pin finishers hit at the exact same time? Yes and no, sort of. If both attacks hit simultaneously, there's a chance that the finisher of one move's hitbox lasts longer than the other, which makes the game process that as an ordinal attack. We'll prioritize the directional force of the one that last had contact and cancel the other out. So then what's the proper timing? The best way I feel it can be explained is that you have to time the startup of the force from one pin's finisher into the startup force of the other. There seems to be a particular zone where once the directional forces collide as they're starting up, rather than Neo's physics engine prioritizing the one that made contact last, it averages out the forces and a new net directional force takes its place, resulting in the pin combination displaying a new physical behavior. Now most of the time, you may be able to achieve this by timing your finishers to hit at the exact same time, but the startup force from one of your attacks may begin a few frames after the animation starts, like with Piercing Pillar, requiring you to tweak your timing to hit within those frames, or what I call the inertia zone, when trying to achieve this phenomenon. Hopefully this clears up why I initially answered yes and no to my previous question about whether inertia manipulation came down to guaranteeing that the pin finishers hit at the same time. Let's take a look at this example using a combination of Shishio and Glacial Getaway to better understand the inertia zone. So right here, as I'm attacking with Shoka, I'm getting ready to release the piercing pillar to time its contact with the Shishio Helm Splitter finisher. As I release the piercing pillar, notice how I time it in a way where the Helm Splitter attack makes contact as the pillar is a few frames past when it activated. It's when the pillar starts activating and the upwards force for the launch begins is where I want Shishio's Helm Splitter to meet. This is what I mean by timing the forces of the finishers as opposed to simply synchronizing their contact. That small nuance in the verbiage changes the approach and timing for how the player is meant to harmonize the finishers of their choice to succeed at inertia manipulation. Let's take a look at this inertia manipulation failure of Shishio and Glacial Getaway. In my attempt to make the finishers hit simultaneously, I don't achieve the manipulation here because again, while having them collide at the same time seems to be what it looks like on the surface, what you're actually trying to do is merge the forces at the same time. Let's take a look at some combination of pin finishers and discern the differences between failing to conserve momentum versus successfully doing so. If your timing is off with this combination, it'll look like this. If you succeed, it'll look like this. If your timing is off with this combination, it'll look like this. If you succeed, it'll look like this. If your timing is off with this combination, it'll look like this. If you succeed, it'll look like this. And if your timing is off with this combination, it'll look like this. If you succeed, it'll look like this. Mastery of this tech, as with any kind of skill, simply comes down to understanding the concepts and practicing the execution. So as long as you're willing to familiarize yourself with the timing each pin takes to activate and unleash their finishers, you'll be able to properly pair their forces against other pins and breed new interactions to them. While understanding how to use this tech isn't pivotal to practical combat, some of these interactions garner the player advantageous variety in the way they can style on enemies and craft combos. It's worth mentioning that while the point of this video was to educate on how to avoid cancelling out the momentum of one of your finishers when trying to perform inertia manipulation, that possessing the compunction to momentum cancel a finisher with another one during combos is an intelligent and intuitive way to elevate the level of control and diversity you can bring to combat. As we've gone over already, unleashing a finisher against the force of another will cancel its momentum, and the force of the finisher whose hitbox lingers the longest will take priority. However, some of the coolest ways to momentum cancel a finisher is by using the pseudo finisher from one of your shockwave or Vulcan uppercut type combo strings and timing it against the use of another finisher. Pseudo finishers is what I'm dubbing the section of a shockwave / Vulcan uppercut combo string that resembles finishers from a similar psych type, inflicts a flinch like a finisher, but ultimately cannot provide a drop the beat opportunity because the attack precedes the actual finishing blow of the pin combo. Another detail that begs mentioning is that some pins may not be able to interact with each other in a way that creates a meaningful inertial manipulation. During my testing, pins like Grizzly in combination with Glacial Getaway didn't seem to have an inertial effect. Either that or I just couldn't get the timing right despite my countless attempts to do so. I imagined a longer than usual hit stagger for Grizzly, in combination with the quick activation of Glacial Getaway's piercing pillar, makes it so that one of the two pins will always cancel out the other, no matter what the timing. To you Neo players out there, if you want to try to experiment with these two pins to see if you can nail some unique interaction, I implore you to try. But for now, most signs are pointing to these pins not being able to achieve inertia manipulation. All the info I've brought to you guys regarding this tech, i.e. the reasons why it happens and how to make it occur, can probably be investigated further. So again, I implore players to delve deeper into this tech so that more information can be collected on it, and thus it can become fully understood on all parameters. This episode simply serves to call attention to this phenomenon, how I've been able to trigger it, and what ways it can be used with various pins. Alrighty, with all that being said, let's take a look at efficient implementation of inertia manipulation and combo crafting.
んな感じか。さすがだな。俺に任せろ。ずっと行くぜ。
やるじゃん私。
おりゃ
やっただけようござんすな。
そこだ。結構やれるもんだな。
やっていったしまい。ここは任せました。今はあんたの番でしょ。
全力で行くぞ。
やったやった
盛り上がってきた。
さすがやるじゃん。
タイミングをバッチシ完璧ですね。いい感じだ。俺に任せろ。勝ったな。よかった。
やってやったし。さすがですな。
完璧。こんな感じかな。勉強になるぞ。何俺たち強いよな。
テイタテイといいじゃん
でしょ。
やるじゃん私ですな。私の番。
どうぞ。
シャキーン。
よし、それが完璧ですね。
じゃあいい感じ。
その調子だ。
やってやったし。
さすがだな。よし、
さすがやるじゃん。
やるしかねえよな。おいおい、あっけねえな。
So yeah, keep on practicing and you'll get the hang of this tech in no time. And that's all I've got for today. Join me next time as we delve into the unique properties of certain pins and how understanding the way they function can bring diversification to your combat and combo prowess during minute-to-minute gameplay. As of releasing this video, I've hit 100 subscribers, so I just want to take a sec to genuinely thank all of you who tune in, like, and comment on my videos. My aim is to continue growing this channel, and to bring you guys video essays on whatever topics I am interested in and have the power to provide insight for. I'm currently working on another essay for a different game while working on this video series for Neo. That essay should be releasing before long, and I hope you guys end up enjoying it once it drops. But yeah, thanks again for all your continued support of my content. I'll see you all in the next one.